Hello everybody and welcome to another Alternative Interactions. I'm Gary. Today we're going to look at the Cathedral power grid, or the church power grid in fact. Both work in a very similar way. But we're going to look at cathedrals and their primary use before I think they became more of a religious concept and building. And then we're going to look at the old Tartarian buildings and how they were used to create power and be part of this grid that went across the whole of the world fundamentally. In a previous show I've shown that there are Tartarian type buildings from China all the way across to North America. Europe wide, Australia, it's everywhere. So this one is I've got quite a few slides to go through. I'm not going to get too technical, although some of the slides are technical as such, but I'll leave that for you to do your own research if you want to delve deeper in this overview of what we're going to be seeing. So please like, share and subscribe, and thank you very much for watching, and here we go. Okay, so here we are. We can see the beauty of churches or cathedrals, but this is a particularly beautiful one, sat on a bridge. Absolutely stunning example of the architecture of the time, and that's another one of these conundrums, because obviously these are modern photographs of these amazing buildings, but a lot of these buildings are actually very, very, very old buildings, and according to history we had horse and carts at this time and hammer and chisel, and were very, very basic in our technology, and yet here we are producing such amazing buildings that we would struggle to build today. So very, very interesting concept, this one, and so please bear in mind that what we're going to be showing you and what we're going to be looking at are buildings that were probably built from the 1000 AD, so a long time ago, a very, very long time ago, 1000 plus years old buildings here, because again we can't trust the history of what they tell us, particularly date wise. So fundamentally a cathedral is a cathode rail, and a cathode rail is a type of electrode through which electrons move. Electrodes are an electrical conductor, usually in metal, that is connected to something that is not metal, the ground. The cathode type of electrode delivers electrons, negatively charged, and the anode collects the electrons. This has a positive charge, and if we think about modern electrics, we have AC and DC, and so which is an alternating current that was devised by Nikola Tesla. So fundamentally this is what we're looking at. We're looking at a modern old version of electricity. Now this helps show you more what we're talking about. So the ground level, the grounding, is the earth. We have an earth cable in electrics, and it's called earth because it's negative. It takes the energy and dissipates it into the ground where it can't do much. And then we have the positive energy, which is up in the ether or the air. And so these churches, cathedrals, cathedrals, have these tall spires, very tall spires, so they can collect the maximum amount of energy to then pump out into the surrounding areas. So this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, producing current. This is actually a modern version of, where all the brickwork's been taken off, and you can see the reasoning for the steel structure and such like. And here you can see the energy that's been produced has created a plasma effect. Now plasma is actually the fourth stage of water. So plasma is just ionized or electrified water. We would see a plasma effect with lightning. So here we have a building that looks very much like a spark plug. And here we have a modern spark plug, the sort of thing that would go into a car. So a current would go into the top, and as it comes down it will produce a spark, and that spark is fundamentally plasma again, it's energy. And here we have a building that looks very similar, and that's no coincidence, because here we can see the building itself and how the internals of the spark plug are very, very similar to the internals of these buildings. Very interesting. And here we have some more examples, and these are modern versions of free electrical devices like this, which is a Tesla coil, and here we can see the plasma being produced from it, and this is exactly what we see in old well decoration, but the old well decorations and towers are actually technology. So this is the old and this is the new, the modern, with our overhead wire system, pylons and high voltage. We can see this building here represents the Tesla coil, very, very much so, with the coils going round, and within inside the brickwork here would be the metal structure. Now this goes all the way back to the Egyptians, believe it or not. This is how old this technology is, and we can clearly see the Egyptians, and I've shown this in previous show, that the Egyptians had light bulbs and free wireless energy as well as batteries, and this is just a demonstration of how old this tech really is. So there's nothing new under the sun. And here we have a lamppost, but it doesn't seem to have anything on top particularly, but this is actually a power resonator. This would have created power for the immediate area, not a huge amount like this church where we have the turrets which would be creating and getting more power because of the energy, but this church with the alignment of this pole would have been working in tandem to create an etheric grid, an electrical grid. And here we can see sorry, excuse me, here we can see old Tartarian buildings with the technology sat on the top to take in or absorb the maximum amount of 3 electricity from the ether. We have another example here. This is actually a damaged building. You can see the insides have been ripped out, and we do see this on many Tartarian buildings, that they have been destroyed systematically by our modern masters to hide the fact that there was indeed not only free electricity, but electricity that would have been beneficial to us. Now this is a cross section of a typical domed building. St Paul's Cathedral in London would be a typical example of this, but we see it in train stations and such like all over the world often. And again, some of these train stations have very, very big openings, far too high and wide for trains necessarily. And that's because I think these train stations were originally docking and charging ports for Zephyrs. And that's how they would have got around in those days as well. So they certainly had the use of flight and the ability to charge the batteries that would have been inside such things. But they wouldn't have really needed batteries because they would have been able to fly wirelessly with the free electricity. So I'll let you look at this for a second. You can screenshot this if you want, but this is the primary workings of the. We can see all the metal here. The metal work inside, it's all very well carefully designed. Now you've got to think that this design and this metal work was produced 700, 800, 900 years ago plus, because the dates that they give us for many of these buildings being built are not the dates they were built. They're the dates that they were re-established and retaken over. Obviously, often they say that the building was founded in this year. Well, founded just means it was found and taken over. It's not the build date. So if we have an extremely old building with all this metalwork inside and technology, it then begs the question again, as I started with my show, that clearly these people had a lot more understanding of technology and were far more advanced than we are led to believe. Now, wars are very destructive and negative things, and I think a major reason for the wars was to actually destroy the tech. If we take the city of Dresden in Germany for an example, that was a pristine, fully working Tartarian city that had free wireless technology that all the people wanted and used, and it would have been an absolutely amazing place to be. And so the Allies bombed it off the face of the earth. There was no military reasons to do so. It was clearly used to destroy the old technologies so that future generations would not be able to see what had been. Because there's no money in free electricity. Now you can see clearly on this very old building, probably a church or something, I'm not quite sure, but we have all the tech up here that's still hidden and still hold, but we can see the metalwork and the infrastructure within here that was demonstrated on the previous slide. Again, archways would have been power usage. There's part of a dome still there, and you can see the metal infrastructure within there, which would have created and helped control almost the energy that was produced for free. And here we have a huge hall building, and you can clearly see that the only thing that's left once they've cleared up all the rubble is this grid system, which would have taken the free wireless energy through the hall. Again, these are destruction pictures because you can see that the state of the roofs, but we still have the technology. So not only did we have major, in the background here we have a dome, as you can see, a power producing plant, but we also have energy catching devices on the roofs of domestic houses. There's no wires here at all. It was actually, I believe, in the UK in 1901/1902 that our good friend the Rockefellers got through Parliament that all houses built from that period had to have an electricity meter. So houses before 1901/1902 did not have to have an electricity meter in the house. And that is because the electricity was still known to be, and was still free at that point. And it was actually only after World War I where the controlling elites, I've called them the KM before, the K Mafia before, same people, then took control of the electrical grids fully and started to create artificial blackouts. And they then said that for a small fee that they would guarantee electricity supply would be uninterrupted. And so the meters that had been placed into homes for the last 14, 15, 16 years or so were then used to take a small charge, a small amount of money from these people, to the stage we have now where we actually have debt and poverty from energy use. Here we can see on the ground, these are often wooden posts in the ground, and we can see these grid systems. Now what this is mostly missing here is that there would have been porcelain. So every single one of these, you can just kind of make it out here that we have little nodules sticking up, and on these nodules would have been a porcelain kind of capacitor type thing, a bit like the spark plug that we saw earlier, would have looked very similar to that. And this would have allowed the transfer of energy in a line across, and then the houses will have their own connectors, and so the energy could be then taken via the house roof down into the house. And again, here we have another energy producing tower. It was a grid. So this then takes us to the twin towers of Tartaria, and we often see lots of twinned towers, and again I will go into my usual favourite topic of toroidal fields currently, but these twin towers would have created interconnecting toroidal field of energy, which would have meant that the power absorption from the atmosphere would have, I believe, been more efficient, and so they could have drawn more power than just the single building, because every single one of these towers would be exactly the same as the diagram shown earlier on of the dome and how the makeup is. You just got two. You've got a bigger one and two smaller ones, and this would have also been a way of controlling the amount of energy going through, so there was a constant power projection that wouldn't have caused spikes. It's kind of like how we'd have today, where we would use a system where we would have when we plug our mobile phones into the wall, we don't plug our mobile phone directly into the wall. We actually have a little box, and that box alternates or adjusts the current to allow the electrical device to function without blowing it to smithereens. And I believe this would have been a very similar process or use of in the technology wise. So here we see trams. Now these trams are actually being pulled by horse and cart, by horses basically. It's a horse and cart situation, and we have the first wires that we can see coming across, but in actual fact these trams would have been wireless and controlled by the power from these two energy producers, and so there would the trams would run. And there are actually photos and even film that I've seen where trams are moving along with no horses and no obvious means of propellant. There's no engines, there's no wires, they're not attached to anything. And of course, I mean, this is Paris, Toulouse, and there were many skirmishes, little wars, destructions created by the K Mafia to systematically remove and destroy the power grid that we once had. So here we go again. We have twin towers, and this is actually Tesla technology, where we have a twin aspect Tesla tower, or Teslatrons, and you can see the similarity within that, within the beautiful buildings powering the parks and the area. Now I am going to do another one in the very near future about how and what fireplaces really were, which links into this perfectly. So there's a little clue here on what a fireplace is and how a fireplace would have actually heated up and not consumed or burnt material. And I'll leave that one there for the time being. Again, we have I think this is New York Carlsberg building. Could be wrong, but it's very interesting that we actually have a swastika at the top, which is a love and peace sign, and not something else that was used and misrepresented some time ago. But we can clearly see that we have technology still on the top with the dome that would have powered this entire building for free. We also have a bell here, and the bells were very important as well, going back, which is another video I'm going to do in the future, of the importance of bells and what they actually did do. This is more of a Muslim styled or even Russian style. I say Muslim, it's actually Ottoman Empire. We're actually looking at Ottoman Empire design buildings, but they all have all the tech on them, miniature tech, and this building would have produced huge amounts of free wireless energy for the community around, as would this beautiful building. Not only were these buildings functional, they also were beautiful to the eye and were in harmony with the human and animals around it. They were beneficial to our life and well-being, something that buildings really aren't these days. Again, resonator on top of a dome, and here we have exactly the same. And again, this ridging on the building is also very important, because there is actually a real purpose for this as well. And this is to do with capturing of the electricity as well, and allowing the electricity to flow, I believe, smoothly across the entirety of the building, so that the whole building could You don't have like a peak here and a peak here. This smooths out the use of the electricity throughout the entire building. But again, from this photograph, it's horse and carts. There's no vehicles. And this building would have been ancient by the time these people were around. And it's very doubtful that the tech would have been working at this point. This is Asia, and we can clearly see that this is actually these remind me of very much, and it sounds terrible, of the personal protection zappers that people hold, and you press it and it produces a spark across there of high voltage, which you obviously goes into the person and they squeal, fall down on the floor and twitch a bit, giving you a chance to run away. But you can clearly see that this is the opposite effect of, where it's taking the energy from the ether, not producing it, and it's running it down into this temple complex to run the area around the temple. Now this is something that's a little bit different. Here we can see the use of 3 energy devices on an old leisure punt or boat that would have been run by an electric motor for them to travel along the canals and sightsee. This, I would say, as a guess, because we have the American flag here and the type of buildings behind, would have been at one of the great exhibitions, because they had a lot of water and they built canal systems for all of that to showcase this kind of thing. But we also see it in larger ships in maritime. Although we have sails, we also have what looks like technology at the top of the sails. So did these old ships not only have sails, but when they hit the doldrums or whatever, they could actually produce electricity? And would they have electric motors in the back? This is very ornate and a lot of work just to put on the top of a ship. And again, a ferry, the sort used in the Mississippi and around the world, where we have the paddle ship wheels turning. Yeah, we have a chimney, but we also have plenty of free wireless electricity devices on the ship. Interesting, eh? Now this is the inside of the great fairs, the world fairs, and this one's 1890. I can't remember where it is now, but obviously there's ones in Chicago, the UK, Crystal Palace, Paris, the great expeditions or expos, and they were going along around all over the world around this period, showcasing the technology of the time. And in all of these squared pictures we can see free wireless energy producing tech of different shapes, sorts and types and styles, and the great expos were all powered wirelessly via these devices that were shown. So not only were these devices being showcased, they were actually working and powering the entire expos. It's another photograph. I mean, this could be sat on the side of a road, on a street corner, or an entrance into some kind of place. it's all there, and you can see the electricity meters there, look, showing that the electricity is coming off these. All the dials and all the stuff. This is technology beyond what we have now, which was free, safe and clean. And this is an expo, and you can see how the entire thing is lit up like a Christmas tree from free wireless electricity from within the halls. And we also have the domes as well, the twin towers here. So all of the technologies that we see, I wonder if we can go back, yeah, all the technology that we see here being showcased, it's also been showcased within the buildings, and the design of the buildings and how the buildings were designed to have this electricity. Again, you can see all the lights, all the light bulbs. And this is in the 1880s, 1890s. And it's strange that we've got so many light bulbs sitting there when I think Edison only invented the light bulb maybe a year or so before all these great exhibitions. I mean, isn't that just amazing that within a year or so of a light bulb being invented by him, we suddenly have light bulbs everywhere. But Edison invented a light bulb that we clearly see the Egyptians were using. Interesting how technology and reinvention of stuff keeps coming around and around and around. So I would say that the Edison inventing the light bulb is hokum. And that's me being polite. Here we have a card from one of the American fairs, because we have the American flags flying, and we can clearly see the lights shining off it, and the fact that they're demonstrating the lights is because these were a newish kind of thing to be put out into the public domain. And we even have a water fountain coming down here. So we've got fountains of water and water being pumped out. This is all by pump. This isn't by gravity, as you would be told. These are all pumped. It's all using electricity from its own source. It's creating its own electricity to produce this show. Fascinating. Now here we have a very interesting concept. This looks like an orb. I think it's just a flash from the photo of when it was taken, but if it's an orb and that's the energy, that's wonderful. But we have these gateways. Obviously the gateways have a duality of many meanings, but they were energy producers, and they did produce energy, or they were able to control the energy in such a way that it could be managed, almost like a capacitor. I think that's the right word, but it's the same principle of you plugging in your phone into the charger, then going into the mains. This would be the equivalent of the charger, the box that you would put your lead onto, but there was no need for a lead. Now what's really interesting about these is when you start to look above, and we get these in a central area that then produce in lines, in grid form, the power from the outgoing, almost like spoked design of the buildings. Now this is a very, very old picture. This is a very, very old design. And we know they're very, very old because we see it today still. I mean, this could be Paris, I'm not sure, but we can clearly see the lines and the grids as it sparks off and goes off in its lines. We're creating toroidal fields. This is creating a toroidal field of magnetic and magnetism to follow this system. And you can see here on how a magnet works that this being kind of put upside down, but obviously it's likely to be this way round actually, because this is the grounding, and so there'd be rods either side, and that would produce these kind of lines. And can you see how they bend slightly? They curve. There's a curvature here, and look at the curvature. It's not a straight line, it's a curvature. So they're not all necessarily dead straight, and they are following the line of the magnetic resonance. And here we have a crop circle showing exactly the same kind of thing. You'd have your carousel in the middle, and coming out from it you would have but this crop circle is actually showing free electricity using magnets. So what we have is the a ground plan of the Pantheon of Rome, which I think links into what we've just been seeing, because we have the centre point, and then coming off here on the grid formation we have the power, how it would have been used, and how the power would have congregated and gone into this central area. We're talking very, very, very old designs here and concepts. This is the Florence Cathedral floor, and we can see that central part here, and we can see the grids coming off it. Again, we would have here would be the archway, and we can see how they spin off. In fact, the buildings are even semicircled, curved, to absorb from here and get that get the energy. They're not straight, they're not squares. There's a reason why they're curved. There's a reason why they're curved. It's to take in the energy. And then we have churches interspaced around to give boostage to the grid coming here. You know, here's a church and a tower creating a boost, and there's another one in alignment, and coming off there within the electrical systems would be that curvature that I showed you from the magnet. This is Barcelona, and you can clearly see the grid formation of the buildings and how they all come out and off from the main roads. This was designed. Barcelona is a very, very old city. It was designed this way for power, to give people free wireless power. When they designed it, it wasn't haphazard, it wasn't a mistake. This is, I've shown this picture before, this is inside a church, and here we can see the energy, and so the church would have produced the energy, and this would have then outed and it would have gone around. But this is a modern day healing circuit board fundamentally. Part of the Cathedral. Now this is an interesting one, and something I came across a while ago. The bricks of the day of Tartaria tend to be red, and they tend to have a very high iron content, and the iron within the bricks would have acted as a battery. Now I can't really show this in any really easy way, but what we do have here is bricks called cables, electric cabler, electricity cable, IT, Baldwin, and these would have had a high iron content, and you can run an electrical current through these. So not only did the buildings produce free wireless electricity via the tech from the different metals and mercury spinning around, the bricks themselves would absorb the energy, and so would then give out a consistent resonance of energy. Oh, and look here, look, we've got new smart bricks, and they can store energy just like a battery. Oh my god, who thought of that idea 1,000 years ago or more? Nothing new under the sun, hey? Now this, although it looks nothing, is on the side of a church. And we have a couple of sort of wires or bits of metal that have been chiselled off. But this, I believe, was a kind of plug system, a charging point, and this would have produced electricity. This is fundamentally a very old form of cabling, and it's coming out of the church wall, and we have this specific mark, and this specific mark would have been for something specific. I'm not sure what it is, but it certainly has a use, and as soon as I saw that, I knew what that was. Very important. Now, a cathode and a cathode rail, the round windows and the importance of within cathedrals. A cathode rail is positively and negatively charged and creates a vortex or a toroidal field, and we see this exact technology in the round windows of churches. So here we have the round window, and they create something that they call a magnetron or cathode, with the positive and negative energy spinning round, and these, from the free energy that they would have harnessed from the twin pillars, would have been enhanced via the tech that would have still been in the church, and probably nothing more than a copper cable going from the ground up into something, which is where we kind of saw that cabling coming out of the side of the church that I just showed you picture, and we would have got a beam of energy. So whoever was standing where this photograph was taken would have received a very strong beam of energy from this window. But something else that came to light the other day, which is a very interesting one as well, is obviously some church windows have no stained glass colours and some do. And we were watching Joe the Astrologer. Was it Joe the Astrologer? We were watching somebody anyway, and they were talking about it could have even been the 10 of Platonic planes. I can't remember now, I do apologise, but they were talking about that was Meten. I do apologise, that was Meten from Tectonic Planes, and he was drinking out of a red glass because the red colour mixed with water had a beneficial effect because he was Piscean within the effects of the planetary alignments currently. And so what we see with this multicolour within the rose windows of a cathedral is the energy coming out, going through a colour filtration system, would have been beneficial for you to stand in front of, because it would have changed and affected the energy hitting you via the air, because the air is actually made up of water. It's a fluid. It's just less dense than water. And so that would have had a positive effect on you. So thank you very much, Meten of Platonic Planes, for putting that little piece of the puzzle together for me. So this is the reason why we have some windows with coloured glass in, because that would have a positive or beneficial effect to the power and how it could be used and utilised. Here we have some more diagrams of cathodes in the building form. As you can see, advanced stuff, and here you can see the electric, the flow from the magnets or the toroidal fields that would have created. Now, everything in this universe is energy, frequency and vibration, but it's also colour, and colour is a frequency, and colour is also an energy, and colour is also a vibration. And so we have a huge mixture of all sorts of shapes, mandalas almost, and I have a slide very similar to this, and the top three look like similar to this perhaps, are actually the human DNA. So churches or cathedrals not only were power units, but they would have been able to affect the human DNA, and that's another one, another look into that I need to do from this overview. And here we can see how advanced and beautiful they've made these systems of creating toroidal field energy to be pumped out through the system. This design is not by accident. Again, here we have beautiful cathedral window with different colours pumping out a different form of free wireless energy, which would have, I believe, been beneficial to us, the people. Another example, looks like a flower, doesn't it? In fact, that looks very much like a Christ code sequence flower. And here we go again. Again, it seems to be using a natural, nature devised system. Why would you build such a perfectly round window so intricately if it did not have a purpose? And this is a quick look at several beautiful round windows, and we can clearly see the colour changes. You know, this one's more of a green, this is a blue, this is a red. Intricate, beautiful, and with purpose, and for a very important purpose. Now this is something else that then links into this, which is what I hinted at earlier, is we always tend to have an organ by the window, because the sound resonance going through the window would have had healing and beneficial effects into the area, and that's something I'll cover further in the future. And this is the Schumann resonance on water frequency, and here we can see that there's a face, and here we have the Aztec calendar with the face. And when we go back to the church windows, if you put a face in there or a face in here, you'd be looking at a resonance, wouldn't you? And here we can see it's a 7.8 Hertz frequency. And that is the end of my slide. So let's go. Hello everyone. Well, I hope you found that interesting. It's an overview. I didn't want to go too deeply, but there is far more to cathedrals, their round windows, and the way that they would have produced free power than there is to the religious side of things. I'm pretty sure if you walk around a church and you go around a churchyard, you will struggle to find a gravestone much older than late 1700s. Very difficult. You may find some inside the church, but you won't find many, if any, on the outside. Most of them start around the early 1800s, mid 1800s, which is another question in itself. Where are all the old gravestones, and where are all the old bodies? If they were religious and burial systems from them, you would, I would imagine, soon fill up a graveyard. I'm just saying, over hundreds and hundreds of years, you know. Some things just don't quite add up in my mind. So I'm aware it's been quite a long show again. I do apologise, but I wanted to give you the overview of the power system and the grids that we once had, and then I can look into it more deeply into certain aspects that I think you'll find really interesting. So thank you very much for those who managed to do the entire bit with me. Please like, share and subscribe, and blessings and thank you, and I'll catch you soon with my next presentation. Bye.